Thank you for joining us today for the Conform to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. My name is Jay Jones, here with George Mays for Text Driven Tuesday. Grab your Bible, get it open to Genesis. We're back in the story of Noah. Genesis chapter 7 today, verses 6 through 24. Well, good morning, George.
Good morning.
What do we have today to be, I don't know, morally outraged about? That seems to be the thing in our country, huh?
Well, it's June.
Well, I walked right into that one.
You walked right into it.
Yeah.
Well, I already had it keyed up for you. It is June, and so it is so-called Pride Month.
Yeah.
And first thing I saw, I always tell myself, all right, you're preparing for church, you're preparing for worship, you're going to preach, you don't need to be on Facebook. And I always get on Facebook anyway, just to see what's going on.
That's a poor choice.
I know. First thing that popped up, man, they must have done it at the stroke of midnight.
Yeah.
June 1st. You can put that up on the screen there, Larry. Major League Baseball updated their profile picture. Like it was the very first thing that I saw. They have another one. It's everyone's game. Jay.
The Rangers are the lone holdout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They changed their logo. They changed their logo today because it's Lou Gehrig Day. We'll see if they.
This is all Billy
change
Bean's
it back.
fault.
Yeah.
It is, really.
They had a post about him.
Yeah. That's who I'm blaming. Salvador Perez is taking a stand, though, and he will not be playing on that night.
Yeah.
He's boycotting.
Mm.
Yep. Met old Salvador Perez one time. Did I tell you about that?
Huh.
Yeah, there's this Venezuelan restaurant. It's called Empanada Madness. I'm giving away the secrets for those who live in Kansas City.
Mm.
So if you go to Empanada Madness, if there's a day game, you may go to Empanada Madness at night. You need to be carrying a piece with you, though.
Okay.
You need to be strapped up
All right.
because you're going to a shady place,
Okay.
part of town. But you'll find various royals in there that are from South America.
Okay.
Met old Salvador Perez in there one night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's a pretty chill, cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's your secret if you live in KC.
All right.
Yeah. Because it's authentic. It's the real deal, apparently.
Okay.
Yep. Old Salvi. And I wish I had a picture. Drake was a little boy, but he was with me. Got to take a picture with him. Yeah.
Don't have that on your wall behind you. Should put that picture on the wall behind you, man.
I can't find it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
One of my friends was there with me from seminary, and he has left the faith and don't really have contact with him anymore.
Mm.
But I know he's got it on his phone. I did have it at one time. I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably on one of my old phones somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I've been seeing people say that not as many corporations have been changing their logo
Yeah.
this year. I don't know. Could be a little too optimistic about that. It's all. It's all business. It's all about making money.
Yeah.
Like it's not like there's been some kind of moral revival
Right.
at these these places.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Wow, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't support this."
Right. Yeah.
So they're just trying to
Yeah.
make their profits.
That's
But-
right.
Major League Baseball hasn't cared about their profits in a while.
That's right.
That's why you can never watch any games.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. You got to
That's
subscribe to.
That's why all the games are on blackout.
Yeah, you got to be on MLB Network. They try to make you buy.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
That I am morally outraged about.
I wonder why. Can they not? Maybe they're not making money off of advertising, and so they said we got to shift things.
They're not going to make money off of advertising. No one can watch the games. There's no advertising to be had. How are you going to advertise? It's the business model for Major League Baseball is so backwards. I do not understand it. I don't.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yep. Hey, but the softball World Series is going on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of more exciting anyway. Fast paced.
Mm.
You never got into watching it?
We've been watching some.
Yeah.
We've been watching college baseball also.
Yeah. Fast paced, high energy. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, what else you got? Got anything else keyed up over there?
I got nothing else.
All right. We're going
Nope,
Genesis then.
nothing else.
Genesis 7, verses 6 through 24. 5 certainties concerning the future coming judgment. That might throw people for a loop.
Think so?
Huh? Yeah. Because they might be thinking, we're in Genesis. This is the past. How are we talking future?
Yeah.
But you'll see. You'll see. Just hang in there. But he
It
started with
all come together.
a lot of predictions.
Mm.
Dates when the world was predicted to end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had forgot all about the Nibiru.
Yeah, I thought for sure that you would know that one.
Well, I know Nibiru. I don't know.
Right,
I've
you didn't know the
forgotten
date. You didn't know the
yeah.
date. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did see Nibiru is back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because somebody posted in
Mm.
Florida, what is this red ball? It's obviously the sun setting, but nevertheless, someone posted, that's Nibiru.
Mm.
The sun is already set. You've taken a picture of it.
It's Planet X.
It's coming.
It's been been hiding behind the sun all this time.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It's going to destroy us.
Yeah.
Or it'll either destroy us or the Anunnaki will leap off as they get close enough to intersect and then
Yeah.
reclaim the earth,
Okay.
make us slaves for digging gold again.
Yeah.
That's the conspiracy.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you had a whole bunch of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People predict them in the past. People are predicting them now. That's a lot. We've
Yeah.
lived through about like 5 of these cataclysms already.
Probably more than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, Y2K.
Mm.
I mean, Al Gore predicted that there would be no polar ice caps. What, 2008 or something? 2009.
Yeah, polar bears are going to die.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Antarctica had more ice last year, I think, than
Mm,
any time on recent record.
really.
Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, all these climate change alarmists are always saying within the next, 10 years, the ocean's going to rise and destroy the coastal cities, and
Yeah.
they keep. It's the same thing with guys like John Hagee. Like every time the moon does something, it's a different color. John Hagee is over there like panting. This is it.
Yeah.
He's always trying to line it up with Jewish festivals, and he's predicted it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he has failed over and over and over again, people still listen to him. They still buy his books. It's the same with the climate. It's the same with the climate change alarmists. That's just the secularist model of the religious doomsday predictions. It follows the same pattern. People still listen to it, even though it's been failed prediction after failed prediction after failed prediction.
Yeah.
Pat Robertson. I didn't know this. He actually predicted like the year that Jesus was going to come back.
Really?
Back in 1982. Yeah,
He said
the end of the world, 1982, and he still was doing the 700 Club.
Oh yeah.
up until a couple of years ago, right?
I remember I was getting my haircut. I was probably like, I guess it was maybe my senior year, getting my haircut, Fort Leavenworth. And old Pat Robertson selling the Y2K survival kit because it's the end of the world. Got to survive.
Yeah.
Missed that one. But
Yeah.
we did save the world because we stopped using all the various aerosols and closed the ozone. I don't know if
That's
you know
true.
that. But that's
true.
our generation's.
That's our generation's contribution.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So future generations. That's us. We closed the ozone. We
Okay.
saved the world.
You're welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
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 My favorite is Edgar Whisenant, who wrote 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Be in 1988.
That's pretty funny. Yeah.
And then the next year,
It's 89.
he wrote 89 Reasons.
Yeah.
He stopped making those books, but he had another one called the final warning or something in 1993, I think. So,
Huh.
Yeah, people keep making these doomsday prophecies, and they keep being wrong.
They do.
It's bizarre to me. Like they have their way of getting around Jesus saying that no one knows the day or the hour.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historically, Christians have believed that no one can know the day or the hour that Christ is going to come, but they have their ways of getting around it.
Mm.
Like, but he did say that there was going to be these signs, and then once we see these signs, then we'll know.
Yeah.
We'll be able to calculate it. So,
Yeah. But it is coming. And you took us to Peter. Peter talks a lot about this. 2 Peter 3.
yeah,
Can't overlook this fact, George.
right. As some deliberately do so.
Yeah. That's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like how you work that in, and it kind of served. The 5 points are good because as we go through, you'll say, look, these 5 truths we can see in the first cataclysm, the flood, and these same principles apply to the future.
Yeah.
And you tied this into the gospel in Christ, and so I thought it was really good. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today, and we're looking at 5 certainties. So I guess we can start with you reading the text as we usually do, and then we'll jump into these points and talk about them.
Okay. All right. This is Genesis chapter 7. We're looking at verses 6 through the end of the chapter. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood, of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground. 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah, as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, entered the ark. They and every beast according to its kind, and all the livestock according to their kinds, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every winged creature. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. And those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and Yahweh shut him in. The flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land, in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days.
Mm-hmm. 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 All right. It sounds like when I read that or listen to you read it, it's a good exercise. I would encourage people to foster the ability just to listen to the Bible read. It really sounds like this is a real historical event. That's how it reads, right? I've read some of the ancient Babylonian myths or some of the other flood narratives. They don't really read like this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first point that you had in this first certainty concerning the future coming judgment, is that this judgment that we're talking about here, this flood, this is a real judgment. This is a real historical thing that occurred. And I like how you brought it out. Like, if you don't believe in the flood, you believe this is just a myth. Like, this is a myth telling perhaps has a moral truth embedded into it, we're in trouble with the rest of the Bible because of the way the rest of the Bible treats this story. And when you listed the various other authors and how they treat. So how does the rest of the Bible treat the story?
Well, I mean, first we need to look at the actual passage. How does the actual passage read? And like you said, as you're just listening to it, it doesn't seem like Noah is right, or Moses is writing some kind of myth. I was listening to William Lane Craig this morning. It's always a good way to start a Monday morning is to listen to William Lane Craig. He was being interviewed about, I guess he's got a book coming out on Genesis.
You can't atone for your sin by punishing yourself.
Yeah. That's right.
I feel like I need to remind you of that.
Yeah. He was being interviewed, and I was trying to find, I ran across a clip from Answers in Genesis from William Lane Craig, but I couldn't find the actual clip of him saying this idea that the whole world was covered by a flood, and Noah brought in all the animals into a boat. It's scientifically, historically, and linguistically ridiculous, basically what he was saying. Well, I was listening to another interview he was doing. I didn't find him touching on this part of Genesis, but he was dealing really with 1 and 2, and he really believes that 1 through 11 is myth, and that it's presented that way. Like it's got a lot of key points with like Babylonian mythology. And so he's saying that Moses is really just trying to present the true myth, whatever that even means, right? So he's not even like really firm on a historical Adam. He believes that there were other humanoid creatures before Adam and Eve. We've touched on this stuff before. And the interviewer asked him, how do you deal with like 12 through 50 being historical and 1 through 11 being myth? And his answer was really jumbled. And then they asked the same thing that I kind of brought out in the sermon. Well, what about the Gospels? Like, if this is myth in Genesis, well, who's to say that the Gospels aren't myth also? And his answer still was like, well, that's been tried. Like, people have tried to read the Gospels as myth, and it was discovered that the best way to read it is according to like first century Judaism. And so it's real, but Genesis is myth. And I just think that I just don't think that works. The text itself reads like history. I mean, you even have in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, like you've got like actual time references.
Right.
If we were to apply the same hermeneutics to Genesis 7 that we're going to in Genesis 12 with Abram, the way that it's presented, there's no markings that would say this should be read as myth. This didn't actually happen, but Abram, well, that did.
Right.
That did actually happen. You have to do kind of a sleight of hand to make that happen. But then you look at the rest of the Bible. You've got obviously Moses. There's allusions to the flood in the Psalms. Isaiah treats Noah as a real figure. Ezekiel treats him as a real figure. Jesus treats the flood as a historical reality.
Right.
In Matthew and Luke. And so now you've got to bring in Matthew and Luke. And if you are Bible believing, even if you hold to a mythological approach for Genesis, they're all going to say Luke is an accurate historian. Well, he's recording Jesus as talking about the flood happening, like a historical event. Peter loves the flood story. He talks about it in 1 Peter 3, 2 Peter 2, 2 Peter 3, and he treats it like a historical reality. Paul in Hebrews 11 treats Noah as a historical reality.
Mm.
Like, in reverent fear, he constructed the ark and he saved himself from the flood.
Right.
If they're treating Genesis 7 as historical, but it actually isn't historical, then we've got some big problems.
Right. Yeah.
And if they're treating it as historical, but it's not historical, and they know it's not historical, then it's really hard to even figure out what their point is.
Right.
I mean, Hebrews 11 is all about real historical figures who had faith.
Yeah.
If Noah is not a real person, he's just a fable.
Right.
Am I supposed to model my life after a fictional figure? Like, is that what the point is?
Yeah.
I mean, my foundational passage was 2 Peter chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
Letting Peter be the inspired apostolic interpretation of Genesis.
Yeah.
And he treats the flood as a real historical reality because he's tying it to a future judgment.
Yeah.
Well, if he's doing some kind of sleight of hand where, well, that we all know that was a myth. We know that was a fable. That didn't actually happen. Then it's hard to even figure out what he's talking about. If that's not real, then, well, maybe the future one isn't real either. Maybe we don't have. I mean, his whole point is these false teachers are saying, where's the promise of his coming?
Mm-hmm.
We all know from the beginning of the world, everything's been exactly as it is now. They're uniformitarian.
Right.
They believe that everything has been like yesterday was the same as today, and the day before the same, and just all the way back. It's just always been the same. And Peter's whole point is they deliberately overlook this fact that God created the world, and then he judged it with a flood.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same way, he's going to judge the world with fire. Well, that sounds like Peter believes that the flood story actually happened.
Yeah.
That it's not a myth. And if it didn't, then I don't know how you're supposed to even interpret Peter.
And given Jesus' teachings on this, Matthew, how are we supposed to even be Christians?
Right.
If he's wrong about this.
Yeah. Or if it's a myth.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't. It would be like bringing up, I don't know, some event in The Hobbit. Remember how Bilbo dealt with Smaug the dragon? Well, that's how you should live also. That's how you should deal with dragons when you encounter them in your life. It doesn't like there's no historical meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that it raises hermeneutical questions. It raises big questions about the inerrancy of the scriptures,
right?
And are they divinely inspired? And it also raises application questions. I don't know if someone like William Lane Craig is he holds to the flood as a myth. I don't know how he interprets Peter. I don't know what you do with it, because Peter is treating it as historical, and he's drawing a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the comparison if one of them is a myth? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And I would assume, because he claims to be a conservative, even though everything I hear is liberal, he believes that the New Testament books are inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Like he believes in the inerrancy of Scripture. So you have to deal with it. You can't just change your hermeneutics based on the scientific presuppositions of the world.
Right.
And you can't change your hermeneutic based on what you think happened or didn't happen based on, current beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You have to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
According to the genre. Like I taught Song of Solomon in Sunday school yesterday. Like that's a different genre from Genesis. I even threw up the Song of Solomon woman, the literal Song of Solomon woman. Like her neck is a tower, and
Yeah.
So that's poetry, and it's a genre, and it's very clear that it's poetic. Genesis is not poetic. It's narrative. It's historical narrative. We can't treat it as a different genre just because, well, everyone knows that this is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I watched Bill Maher. Bill Maher had a thing years ago when the Noah movie, the Russell Crowe movie, came out.
Yeah.
He had something on his show where he was talking about how stupid the flood story is.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, the unbelieving world does think that this is stupid. Well, we shouldn't just be like, yeah, the unbelieving world thinks this is stupid, so maybe we should interpret it as myth.
Right.
It doesn't allow for that. And it misses the whole point of the story. That like this is a miraculous story.
Yeah.
This is not a natural story.
Yeah. What's kind of interesting though to think about is how people still write this off as an impossibility, but there are people making observations even in science to say, look, there was some type of a global cataclysm. We can see the evidence of that in the world.
Right.
Like you have massive flow, like massive water flow marks, like huge scale. Like if you zoom out, because we've scanned like the whole surface of the earth with satellites, you can see them. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. There's a gigantic one in North America, a couple different ones actually. You can see one in North Africa, huge flow. It's just like what you would see after a torrential rain in your yard. You go out and you look at your dirt and how it's points in the direction where the water was released, and it created small channels. Well, you zoom out, and when you got one that encompasses the entire north continent of Africa, and it is the same mark. And so even some scientists now are starting to look at that stuff, but they say it was a result of polar shift or something like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like glaciers and things. Yeah. I didn't bring out a lot of the apologetic stuff. We have a member of our church who did an apologetics class, Sunday school class in Genesis. So I didn't want to bring all that out, and that wasn't really the point. The point wasn't like here's all the evidences, but there are evidences of. I mean, they find like fish fossils on mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Like even secular scientists will say, well, maybe this was underwater, and all the Christians should be like, yes, that's what we've been saying. That's what our book says. That yes, the mountains were under the water, so we shouldn't be surprised when this happens.
Mm-hmm.
So even scientists have this hypothesis that there was at some point water covering these mountains. So there's a reason why they can find remains of sea animals at high altitudes. And look at the Grand Canyon. I mean, the prevailing old Earth hypothesis is that this was formed over millions of years with a small amount of water. Why is it so outlandish for us to say it happened in a short period of time with a lot of water?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so ridiculous? Well, it's just because of presuppositions that you're holding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we hold, I mean, we don't have to. You don't have to let like majority scientific opinion affect the way you read your Bible. Right. There are, and everyone's coming with a presupposition. If you already have the presupposition that the earth is old, that the flood is a myth, you're going to interpret the evidence in a secular way. But there's evidence that supports a global flood. And if your presupposition is already this is true, there is evidence to back it up. You're not, again, it's not this blind faith Well, everyone knows this is a children's story.
Right.
There actually is scientific evidence to back up a global flood,
Right.
but you just have to you have to get rid of those atheistic presuppositions that have been drilled into your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a real judgment, and you used Peter to talk about how he's talking about this to warn that there is a real future judgment, and it's real as well.
Yeah.
And so you ready to go on to the next one, or anything else you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, I brought out the fact that there's flood stories all around the world, which I think is just so fascinating, reading about all of these flood myths, and I don't think it gets enough attention.
Yeah,
like there are flood myths on every continent except for Antarctica, in all the major cultures.
And that's because there's no culture in Antarctica.
There's no people there.
Right.
Yeah. But all of these stories, they have similarities that are undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a flood, one man and his family taking animals onto some kind of craft to escape the flood, being warned, sending an animal out to see if the floodwaters have receded. Like the animal changes in the stories, but they send out an animal to see if the floodwaters have dissipated. It's wild all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
Well, how could that possibly be true? How could that possibly happen unless we're talking wide distances. I mean, down in Australia, North America, even the Norse have a flood myth. How could all of these wildly different cultures have a story that all sounds very familiar if it wasn't real, if it didn't happen?
Yeah.
But the fact is that there actually was a global catastrophe of a flood, and the real story that Noah obviously was telling, having lived through it, his sons are telling it to their sons and their sons and their sons. And as the story is disseminated across multiple generations, as they're spreading out around the world, it's like the game of telephone, and the real story starts to take on these little changes, and across all this time the story it changes according to the different cultures.
Yeah.
But the basic elements are still there because the judgment was real, and because the past judgment was real. Peter says you can know that a future judgment is real also. It's coming.
Yeah. Now the second certainty is that it will be a sudden judgment. I like how you brought this out. We can have maybe this wrong idea in our mind that it just kind of started raining and the water was building up over time, and eventually it got so much, the boat lifted up, and then eventually, the world was covered in water.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what we read here in the text. It seems to be very violent,
yes,
and sudden and cataclysmic.
Mm-hmm. That's what it seems to say.
Yeah.
That all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened.
Yeah.
That does seem like a violent, sudden catastrophe.
Yeah, it does.
The earth is the great deeps. The great deep burst forth. It's like the Hebrew word is like tear, rip apart. It's all the water under the crust bursting out all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. It's only during our lifetimes, I believe, that we discovered there's more water under the earth than there isn't in all of the oceans on the surface. Yeah.
I was talking to Phineas yesterday about that because he was really fascinated by that, because I was talking about, this would be like Old Faithful in Yellowstone, and it's boiling water. Like it's not cold water that's shooting up. So that adds another element to the flood story that maybe is overlooked.
Uh-huh.
Like There's there there are multiple ways to die in the Genesis flood. It's not just drowning.
Right.
And we were talking about that there's water under the earth right now, and he said, yeah, they believe, because Phineas is, I don't even know where he gets all this. I mean, he's always learning. He's very fascinated by this stuff. He's like, yeah, they think that there's enough to cover the whole earth. I was like, exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's enough water under the earth right now, that could flood the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and it would not be cold. It would be boiling.
Right.
The pressure of the earth's crust keeps it in its liquid form, and so it would shoot up out of these great chasms, boiling.
Mm-hmm.
Not great.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could explore all kinds of things. This is probably when the continent. I personally believe that the continents were all one in the pre-flood age. This could account for the continents breaking apart.
Uh-huh.
Like, this is violent. It's not. This is why it's so funny, the way that we communicate the flood story to kids, is that it always seems to be really peaceful. Like, the waters are just coming, the rains come down and the floods came up, right?
Right,
That's
right.
the song. And it's much more violent. The earth is breaking apart. Boiling water is coming up, and then the windows of the heavens are opened. All the air in the atmosphere just comes crashing down.
Yeah. Do you think pre-flood the atmosphere was different?
I would not doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I don't know, but
I've seen.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I've seen people talk about that. Like, pre-flood, the environment of the earth is much more even hospitable to human life. So it'd be like being put in a barometric chamber, which they'll treat some illnesses like that.
Yeah.
Where they overpressurize, they put more oxygen, so like double the amount of oxygen under pressure, and it completely changes your physiology. Like, the way your body reacts to it is like superhuman. It's like healing properties.
Yeah.
Also, I think there may be evidence of dinosaurs that their respiratory system is not fit for the earth as we know it today. Like, they could not survive. Like, they couldn't breathe. They didn't have enough oxygen. Their nostrils are small. So how do you properly oxygenate a gigantic beast that has a tiny respiratory system? Impossible in our environment.
Yeah.
So the world had to be different back then.
Yeah.
Then I guess that would make sense
we
for
just,
a sudden.
We just don't know. We don't know everything about the pre-flood world.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a world that's been lost to us in many ways, because there was a global catastrophe. It can't be stressed enough. This was a violent catastrophe. I mean, on top of the waters erupting from the earth and the waters coming down from the sky, this would affect weather patterns. Who knows? I mean, there could have been worldwide hurricanes and all kinds of stuff going on.
Was, yeah.
It was a cataclysm. It was not a peaceful event, and it was sudden. I mean, we look at Genesis chapter 6. You got the sons of God. They're taking any of the daughters of men that they want. They're having children, and there's the Nephilim, and they're mighty men of renown. So they're doing something. They're these heroes of old, and they're just enjoying life. I mean, they're going about their sinful passions,
right?
Just doing whatever they want, and all of a sudden, catastrophe just strikes.
And this is the emphasis that Peter is making.
Right.
It's the future judgment will be the same. It'll be sudden.
Yeah, that's what Jesus says.
Yeah.
In Matthew chapter 24, just as it was in the days of Noah.
Yeah.
They're marrying and giving in marriage. They're eating and drinking, and then the flood came and swept them all away.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Did you get any kickback on this part of your sermon from anyone?
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah. Because I know for many people grew up in only one perspective of the future end times.
Right.
What you said could have been a little bit alarming.
Yeah.
Because you said we're in Jesus' teaching where he says one is taken, another is left. You don't want to be the one taken.
Yeah. I mean, this is the way I was taught it growing up, is that this is teaching a secret rapture, and that there's going to be people who are taken. They're going to be snatched out in a rapture.
Yeah.
And then everyone left are the unbelievers. But that's not the way that it reads. It talks about they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when the flood, when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. Well, who's being swept away? It's the unbelievers, right? Noah is left. I mean, we're going to get to chapter 8 next week, and he's still there. The whole point is the flood takes the judgment takes all the wicked away. Mm-hmm. And the believers remain. I've heard John MacArthur, who is a pre-trib rapture guy, say that you can't get it from this passage because the context is the wicked being carried away.
Yeah,
that it's not about the righteous being snatched out. Right. Of the world secretly. Mm-hmm. It's judgment coming and sweeping all the wicked away so that the righteous remain. Mm-hmm. No, I didn't hear any. I mean, if people disagree, it's fine. I just think that the context. I mean, that verse right before, when the flood came and swept them all away, that seems to have happened. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, and one left. Well, what does taken mean in this context? He's taken in judgment. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. Yeah. One will be taken and one will be left.
Right.
And it seems like the context is the flood judgment taking them away.
That was the first domino to fall for me when I was, I think, solidifying in my view of the end times.
Yeah.
Is this text here? Mm. And once I saw that, I went searching.
Yeah.
And found no rapture.
Not a secret one, anyway.
Not a secret.
Not a secret
Obviously,
one.
We believe that we're caught up in the air,
right.
and transformed in an instant, but
not
one where we disappear to escape judgment that's coming on the world.
Yeah, it seems that the rapture, being caught up, is to go with Christ and then come down to the to the earth.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, I didn't hear anything, but that's Jesus' teaching. It's suddenly, right? The judgment of the flood was suddenly, which is wild because Noah has been building this boat for 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't secret. He doesn't have like some Area 51 bunker where he's building this ark and no one knows what's going on. Like, this is going to be a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Come see the crazy person who's building this gigantic boat.
Right.
And Peter, he calls him a herald of righteousness. Right. He's preaching. He's preaching about the coming judgment. And they don't believe.
Yeah.
And Jesus said it was suddenly.
Yeah, things have been going on forever. What are you talking about? Like, you're building a boat. Like, nothing like this has ever happened. Things are continuing on like they have always gone. And
well, you can even think if our interpretation of the sons of God is correct, and you've got like heavenly beings on the earth ruling, you can think of the arrogance. Like, people are going to think, oh, we're under the divine protection of this guy.
Right.
Poseidon.
Think about Poseidon.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Or Zeus, or
I've got control. I've got control of the seas.
Right. You've got this. Yeah. They're probably praying to these sons of God. I mean, they're probably worshiping them and believing them for protection. Well, they get judged and put in chains of darkness, as Peter says again, in Tartarus, and everyone else gets swept away in flood judgment because there's only one God. And Noah has been preaching this, but it's the same. It's the same for our world. If you go around warning people of coming judgment, you're likely to be scoffed at.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, people are not. When I say suddenly, I don't mean unaware. The Noah's world was not unaware of what Noah was warning them of. They just didn't care,
Right.
and they didn't believe.
Right.
That's the same with our world. They're not unaware that Christians are warning that there's coming judgment. They just don't care. In their arrogance, they know they're going to die. They just don't think there's a judgment.
Right.
And whether the great future cataclysm when Christ comes and ends the world, or they die, it's going to be a sudden judgment.
Right.
But they won't be able to give an excuse. Like, I didn't know that there was judgment.
Right.
Well, you just didn't care.
Yeah.
You just didn't believe.
Yeah. 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 All right. The third one is it will be a worldwide judgment. And you got into a little bit, which we already alluded to, that this is not just a localized flood.
There is a video on YouTube. Gavin Ortlund. You familiar with Gavin Ortlund?
Yeah.
He has a video arguing for a localized flood. He argues that a localized flood would make sense of the word eris, the Hebrew word eris, which means it could mean land. But it also, a localized flood could also wipe out all the people, which I don't think all the people are living in one place during this time. I mean, I think within these 1,600 years of people procreating and having a bunch of kids, that there's probably millions of people. They're probably not living all in one place. So a localized flood wouldn't do it. But he's arguing for a localized flood as someone who believes in an actual Noah's flood. But the language still is hard for me to square with a localized flood.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, obviously, but how could a localized flood even work to cover the mountains over 20 feet deep?
Right.
Because the fluid's going to run to other parts of the world that aren't flooded.
Right.
And so then the mountain tops aren't actually going to be submerged.
Right.
Right. You could climb to some high mountain. Maybe it gets halfway up the mountain, but how are you going to cover all the mountains to the top?
Yeah.
It's going to flow somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a localized flood, a mountaintop's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not what the text says.
Yeah. Yeah. The language, it seems to be worldwide. I mean, there's no place to escape. There's no place to run and hide. The water's coming up from below, so you can't go underground. You can't hide somewhere underground. You can't build some kind of bunker because the ground is breaking apart. You can't climb because the water, it's said, it covers the mountains 15 cubits deep. That's 22 and a half feet over the highest mountains. And we can talk about that if you want to. The scientific stuff about how did they breathe in the ark if they're 22 and a half feet above like Mount Everest. And you can't tread water. Like you can't swim because it covers the earth. It rains for 40 days and 40 nights, but the flood waters cover the earth for 150 days. So there's no one that's going to be treading water for 5 months. Right. So, you can't escape it. And the language itself, it reads like it's worldwide. I mean, the problem is that all humanity has corrupted themselves. They've corrupted the whole earth. I made the little joke. This is where we can agree. All means all. But the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the mountains under the whole heaven were covered. That doesn't seem localized.
Right.
All flesh died that moved on the earth. Everything on the dry land, in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. He blotted out every living thing. Only Noah was left, and those that were on the ark. So even if we're talking about humanity is in one place and the flood is localized, the language still says everything on the dry land that had the breath of life dies. Are we saying that all the animals were localized also? I mean, the language is total. It's everything. Right. It's complete.
Yeah, and this is the same in the future judgment.
Yeah, yeah. And this is decreation language. So you go back to chapter 1, and God divides the waters from the waters. So there's the water below and the waters above. And he divides the waters into one place so that there's the sea and the dry land. Well, here it's decreation. It's everything's going backwards. The waters are covering the earth again, and the waters above and below are coming back together. Mm-hmm. So it's everything that God made good in Genesis 1 now it's a restart. It's a hard reset.
Yeah.
And the only things that are surviving are on the ark.
Yeah.
Everything else is gone because the world has ended.
Right.
I mean, this is the end of the world. That is what the story is communicating. Mm-hmm. And that's what we get in the New Testament, talking about the future judgment. I mean, Peter talks about the very elements burning up. It is the end of everything, not just the end of the world. It's the end of everything. Mm-hmm. It's everything is going to come to an end. It's the same with Revelation chapter 6. All the mountains disappear, all the islands disappear, and everyone on earth is crying out for the mountains to fall on them and hide them. But how are you hidden? How are you hidden from God? Mm-hmm. How are you hidden from God? The sky is described like a scroll that's unfurled, and at the end it's like letting go of the sides, and it snaps back together. It's the end of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can't escape it. You can't run and hide. There's no. I mean, you watch doomsday movies, and there's always like a sliver of hope as the hero is able to run from the cataclysm. Mm-hmm. And there's always some last holdout. There's always like a small community of people that survive the cataclysm. That's not what's going to happen in the future. There's not going to be some last holdout of humanity that can escape the final judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So now the fourth point, people might have trouble squaring with their view of God, because you say the future judgment, it will be a good judgment. And so you're arguing this judgment is good, the future judgment is good. But then people say, look, how can God be good? He killed everybody on the earth. Men, women, children, right, all gone. Mm-hmm. Square that with this being good.
Yeah. And that was one of the things in the Bill Maher video that I watched. You can watch it on YouTube. Just type in Bill Maher, Noah's Ark, I think. Mm-hmm. You'll find it. Yeah, he criticizes it because why would you ever want to believe this story is true? Because you've got this mass murder. Yeah. And the mass murderer is God. That's his criticism, is that God just kills everyone, and we're supposed to be like, all right. And we teach it to our kids, and he is attacking the character of God. Mm-hmm. Like this, if this is a true story, this is not a good God. This is an evil deity. And I think I think a lot of the unbelieving world would think the same thing. I mean, what are we supposed to do with a God who kills everybody? Well, if this was the only story, I guess we could maybe get there. But we've got 6 chapters that have come before this. We've got God introduced in chapter 1, and he's omnipotent, he's triune, he is wise, he's ordered, he's powerful, he creates everything. And because he creates everything, not because he needs anything, he's not creating because he's got some kind of need that needs to be fulfilled. Because he's made everything, he is the king. I mean, he's the sovereign. He sits over the universe as the ruler, and he creates everything very good, and he creates men and women in his image to reflect his goodness, And not because he needs them, but because he simply wants to lavish love on these creatures. He enters into a covenant relationship with them.
Right.
And what does Adam and Eve do? They reject it.
Uh-huh.
They reject this good God. They've got everything. He's given them everything except one tree. And they reject all of it because they want autonomy.
Uh-huh.
They want to be their own God. They want to be the ones who determine what is good.
Mm-hmm.
What are we supposed to say to a story like that? Like God is evil for not giving them everything.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that Adam and Eve were doing. That's the same thing that the serpent was questioning. He was attacking God's character too.
Yeah.
Well, did God really say that you can't eat from any of the trees?
Yeah.
He's attacking God's character.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's getting her to focus on the one thing that God didn't give.
Right.
And then he contradicts it and says, "You won't die."
Right.
God knows that if you eat it, you'll be like him.
Mm-hmm.
So Eve wants to be like God. That is that's humanity's sin.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be like God. And even though they violate the covenant, God still shows them grace. He covers their nakedness. He atones for their sin. He doesn't kill them immediately. They are able to live extraordinarily long lives. And what does humanity do despite his grace? Cain kills his brother and is more concerned about his own safety than the fact that he's sinned against God, and his whole line descends into madness. You get to chapter 6, and the whole world's been filled with violence. Is this not a good God who allows these rebels to live long lives? And they invent musical instruments and tools, and they make advances in technology, and they've so corrupted the earth that he determines to make an end to it. And Bill Maher's response is, that's an evil God.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is.
It's wild.
Yeah.
This is justice.
Right.
This isn't God on a whim destroying everyone. He's not throwing a temper tantrum. He's allowed humanity to flourish in its sinful rebellion for 1,600 years. And for us to point the finger at God and say, you're evil for killing everybody, just highlights how wicked humanity is and how just his judgment is.
Mm-hmm.
Compare this with other mythology from the ancient Near East. You look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, you look at Babylonian mythology, and the gods create humanity because they want humans to work for them. They want them to give them food. And then when the humans multiply too much, they become so noisy that the gods can't sleep. And so the gods, because humanity has become so noisy, they decide to flood the world and kill everybody. That's evil.
Right.
That is evil. The story that we get in Genesis 7 is not evil. God has been extraordinarily good to a thankless humanity. And they don't want God. They've rejected him. And so God's giving them exactly what they want. He's judging them for their sin. And yet he's showing grace to 8 sinners by not wiping them out, but saving them.
I think you can argue it from the reverse, too. We know in our conscience, even apart from law, what is morally good, morally bad. And I think if people are honest with their view of the world, they'll say the world is corrupted, even again now, with evil.
Yeah.
So we can see, based on our day, the type of evil that is in the world. Well, you can amplify it in this day, too. What would it say about God who would not judge, who just lets it continue?
Right.
Who lets all of the moral depravity and violence and evil, and God's like, free will.
Yeah, the same
continue.
The same people who would argue that God's evil for wiping out the world are the same people who will point the finger at God and say, "You let child rapists live."
Yeah.
Like, you let all this evil happen.
Right.
It's never us. We're never the problem. It's always God. God's always the one who's not doing his part. And we're always the ones who are.
God actually says, "Don't let the child rapist live."
Yeah.
We're the ones who let them live.
Yeah.
We'll give them 6 years in jail. And if the prison gangs don't take care of them, then they get out.
Mm-hmm.
They do it again.
Yeah.
We're the evil ones.
Yeah. We're somehow more merciful than God.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of it highlights our depravity, just how wicked we are,
Mm-hmm.
and how good God is, and his judgment upon the flood, the pre-flood world, was good. I thought about changing it to just. The future judgment will be just, but I really wanted to highlight the fact that it's good.
Mm.
That's what I mean by it, that it's just, that the world gets what it deserves. Like, God is a just God. He doesn't let sin go unpunished. But it's good. It's good that he does this.
Right.
That's his character. He doesn't do what's evil. He only does what's good.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him to judge the whole world and save only 8 people is good. And when he judges our world for its wickedness, sometime in the future, whenever he does it, it will be good.
Yeah.
And we see that in Revelation chapter 19, when all of heaven rejoices when he judges Babylon the Great.
Yeah, I think you could also say, someone who's arguing, like looking at this, it brings up the problem of evil and suffering again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not really actually a problem unless you think God's not going to do anything about it.
Right.
And if God's not going to do anything about evil and suffering, then I suppose you could throw the accusation.
Mm.
But just because he doesn't do it on your timeline,
Right,
doesn't mean that he's not good. In fact, the opposite's true, because he is going to do something about this. He did in the past, he's going to do it again. You can say he's a good God because he will eradicate all evil from this world.
Yeah.
And that's what a good God would do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, if there's no future judgment, then our world is incredibly hopeless.
Mm.
I mean, if someone like Hitler gets off the hook because he commits suicide before the Russians get to him, and that's it, that's not just. That's not.
Yeah,
justice.
there's no justice in the universe.
There's no justice. It's the Holocaust really was meaningless and hopeless, and we should just live according to a nihilistic worldview.
Yeah.
But because that's not the case, Hitler does not get off the hook. God will judge him fully in the future. That's just, and it's good.
Yeah. We have a way, too, of depersonalizing this future judgment, and we think, it's an idea.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be people, a lot of people, billions of people alive on the earth.
Right.
And they will experience it. And we don't know if that's us. We don't know if that's 1,000 years from now. But there will be people alive that experience the future judgment.
Well, even if we die before this happens, we'll be raised. Like, everyone will be resurrected, and everyone will experience this final standing in judgment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in regard to not being in Christ,
right,
and continuing on in the world, and then one day, all of a sudden, this cataclysm occurs. Yeah. There will be people who experience it,
right,
in their fallenness.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, you were preaching from the angle of, hey, I'm preaching for conversions, and that's what you're trying to emphasize.
Yeah.
Like, this is coming. It's going to happen. People will experience this.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a theory or an idea that's out there.
Yeah.
Which is a way we put it off.
We do. We kind of distance ourselves from it. And I think, again, that's kind of us treating it like it's not real.
Yeah.
Like, we read about the flood, and even if we affirm this is historical, it happened so long ago that we can distance ourselves as if it didn't actually happen.
Mm.
We do, and it's because the idea of future judgment for an unbeliever, it's uncomfortable, and so it's that suppressing. It's the suppressing the truth, right? You don't want to think this is my future, like I'm going to experience this.
Mm-hmm.
There is escape, and that's the last point.
Yeah, the last point. It's an inescapable judgment through Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everyone perishes. There is Noah and his family. And I love that verse. What is it? Verse 17.
Mm-hmm. Where God shut him
Yahweh
in.
shuts him in.
Yeah.
100 years, Noah believes God. He obeys by building the ark, and he enters the ark as God commands him. But after all of that, it's still God's gracious work to shut him in. Noah's not the one who, can you imagine if it was all human effort and he put just a little bit less pitch on one part of the boat? It springs a leak. This idea here in verse 17 is that Yahweh shuts him in.
Mm-hmm.
He is encased in God's grace.
Yeah.
His own weaknesses, his own failures are not going to affect the salvation that God has promised him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not saved because he's a really good engineer.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The whole thing is miraculous. It's supernatural.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. God has already promised he's going to make a covenant with Noah. In chapter 9, he's going to actually make the covenant. And in between, God is going to assure that Noah makes it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hopeful. That's hopeful for us. Peter again, because Peter loves this story. In 1 Peter chapter 3, he talks about how God saved a few people, 8 through the water, and then he says baptism, which corresponds to this. And that's the word antitype. It's the fulfillment of this shadow, this type and shadow.
Right.
Baptism, which corresponds to this, now saves you. So he doesn't in 2 Peter 3, he draws the comparison between the judgment in the past, the judgment in the future. In 1 Peter chapter 3, he draws a comparison between salvation in the past and salvation in the future. That just as God graciously saved Noah and his family through the ark and going through the floodwaters, God graciously saves his people through Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Baptism, it's a great connection
Right.
with Romans 6.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you did Romans 6 before I did Genesis 7, because baptism is not water baptism. And Peter even says it, not the removal of dirt from the body.
Yeah.
Like he even says it's not I'm not talking about water baptism.
Right.
I'm talking about the appeal to a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
He's talking about conversion.
Uh-huh.
It's baptism of the Holy Spirit that brings about conversion.
Yeah.
That's what Noah's story is about. It's about God showing he judges the world, but through judgment he saves his people.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it through a death-like experience going through water. Like the ark is like a coffin, and Noah is shut in this coffin-like boat. He goes through the waters of God's judgment, and next week he'll come out alive.
Yeah.
That's a type of the salvation we have in the future as we go through death. A flood-like capacity. That's why we baptize by immersion. It's to show this reality.
Yeah.
We go through the flood waters of God's judgment, and we come out alive also. Well, if Noah had only had mental assent to judgment and building an ark, but he'd never actually gotten in, he would have been swept away in God's judgment too.
Right.
He had to get in the boat.
Right.
It's the same way with salvation now, with the antitype. God's judgment is coming. The only way that you can have all the mental assent. You could agree with the historicity of the Gospels. You can even mentally affirm that Jesus is who he says he is, that he died on the cross for sin, that he was raised from the dead. You can even agree that salvation is only found in him. But unless you get in the ark, unless you actually trust in him, you'll be swept away.
Right.
It's more than just bare mental assent. You actually have to put your faith in Christ. Noah had to put his faith in God's promise of the ark. Like, he had to go in and believe God's going to keep his word. You have to believe, if I trust in Christ, God will save me.
Right. Yeah. Thinking that baptism, the waters of baptism saves you, is like thinking Noah got saved by the water.
Right.
That's not the connection.
Right.
It's the ark that saves.
Yeah, it's the ark.
And Christ is the ark of our salvation. And you have to be in him. Again, going back to what we already saw in Romans.
Yeah.
This is about being in Christ, united to him in his death and his burial and resurrection. And this is what is salvific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Noah was secure in the ark because Yahweh shut him in. He said, I'm going to make a covenant with you. I'm going to save you. We have something better.
Yeah.
Christ has come to establish a new covenant. And the new covenant is superior to the covenant made with Noah. And those who trust in Christ, Yahweh shuts them in. Like, you can't, you will be saved. You will be preserved. So trust in Christ.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. All right, where are we going next?
Chapter 8. We'll get Noah and his family and the animals off the ark.
Off of the boat?
We'll get them off the boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have a good kind of idea where you're going with this sermon?
Well, I'm framing these two as pairs. So there's 5 certainties of judgment. This one I'm thinking I still need to do some more work, some more thinking on it, but I'm thinking 5 certainties of salvation.
Okay.
So pairing them together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us today for Text Driven Tuesday. Hope this has been beneficial to you and help you to understand the Bible better, maybe help you to understand Genesis better. If it has, please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time. Hopefully this helped you be more conformed to Christ. Bye-bye.